Welcome back to this episode of Furuno Connections. I'm Eric Kunz, Senior Product Manager.
And I'm Clayton Pattison with Technical Support.
And in this episode, we're going to concentrate on the DRS6A Radar. We're going to remove it and we're going to replace it with the DRS6A NXT.
Now, technically, we could keep this existing DRS6A and just reuse it with the TZ Touch 2. All it requires is a software update to do that.
That's right.
But Team Fortunate really wants to upgrade because they want to take advantage of the new solid-state Doppler radars with their enhanced bird mode and target analyzer features.
That's right.
So we're going to take this off, we're going to put the new antenna on here. So Matt, we're going to put the new 6A NXT on the boat, the new Doppler solid-state radar. There's a lot of different reasons to use a radar. There's a lot of different applications, some for safety and fishing and so forth. What about radar is important to you guys? How do you guys use it and what do you guys need out of it?
Right. For us, two main functions really. Obviously we've touched on safety earlier, that being number one. We fish in an area that weather is known to be, relatively hazardous.
Fog, rain, and all sorts of
fog. I mean, fog you can't see 20 feet in front of the bow, and we've come in on radar and many a times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and vessel traffic
Right.
in addition,
right. Leave in the morning, clear blue skies, no wind. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, fog blows in, can't see rain. So.
Exactly, yeah. And Matt, it's important to stress that safety aspect that you're looking for is really, really improved and unbelievably different with this NXT radar. And the trick is the Doppler functionality. With solid state radar and that Doppler functionality, we get a third component in every sweep. Not just range and bearing, like a traditional magnetron would give us, or a magnetron radar. But you get that third component, that Doppler shift component, and that gives us radial velocity, so you get range bearing and target movement information in every sweep. That's just something you couldn't get before. It really raises your situational awareness, and you can just take a quick glance at the display, look for different colored targets coming in, and kind of make your move and adjust your navigation based on it. So take that and add a rain mode to the target analyzer feature that we really haven't talked about that much. But like you said, you go offshore here, it's blue skies in the morning, you got maybe different tidal conditions, fog rolls in, or rain. And one of the nice things about this target analyzer rain mode is that before with X-band radars, you could not see targets inside rain. The rain masked the targets.
Yeah, just turned into a big blob.
Exactly, turned into a blob and you couldn't see anything. But with this Doppler signal processing and this target analyzer rain mode, you can actually see red targets inside blue elements of clouds that is just unbelievable. The fact that we can switch that target analyzer mode between targets and rain is really cool. So if you have a lot of rain in the area, just hit the button and flip on the rain mode in target analyzer, and boom, you'll be able to see targets inside rain. That's super important for these big ships coming in and out of the Columbia, as you know. There's a lot. It's a busy port. There's pilot traffic, ship traffic. You need to be aware of all that.
Right. We're terribly excited about the safety aspect of it. Safety is always number one, but when it comes down to what we're doing out there, business is catching fish.
That's right.
Part of catching fish is finding birds. That would be our number two main priority for the new radar is to be able to track birds, birds equal to and where they're going to catch them.
Yeah, we have some really nice new bird modes in this radar that really dial it in for you automatically. One of the crazy things about bird detection with radars is that it was always considered kind of a black art. There was captains who knew how to do it. Typically they had higher power 12 or 25 kilowatt Furuno radars, and they had them
6 foot array.
Yeah, and at least a 6 foot array. Yeah, and they had them dialed in as far as sensitivity goes. One of the nice things about Furuno is that we're the only radar manufacturer that actually makes our own microwave integrated circuitry as well as our magnetrons. We are a magnetron manufacturer and a solid state manufacturer as well. So we combine all those components into one system, and that's something that other manufacturers have trouble doing because they don't get at that level that we do in terms of design and manufacturing. And we can, the nice thing about a radar system is that it's an echoing system. So you have your own transmitter and your own receiver. You're only dependent on yourself, but those two components have to be dialed in and matched perfectly with each other, especially when finding really weak targets like birds. Yeah. So that's one of the tricks, is being able to dial it in, increase the sensitivity of every component in the system to really maximize your bird detection capabilities. And this new NXT radar is designed to do exactly that.
Yeah.
The bird modes make it easy. You just set the weather condition and boom, turn it on, and it'll automatically optimize itself and show you where they are.
You know, what blows me away too is that, you know, like he said earlier, is that years ago, you had to have a big powerful antenna and a really long array to be able to pinpoint it, 3 or 4 miles,
right,
to get any kind of decent target coverage on birds at all. Now with the NXT series, because we have the 24-inch dome and then the 6A open array. The dome has a bird mode.
Yeah.
If you told me that 10 years ago, that you'd be able to, pick out birds with a 24-inch dome, I'd have laughed at you.
It's tricky.
Because there's no way you're going to do it. It doesn't have the beam
you
spread
need the
to do it.
sensitivity.
But that dome will do it. It'll pick up birds almost at twice the range that the old ones would, and it works.
Yeah.
So Eric, these antennas, you got the option between a 3.5 foot, a 4 foot, and a 6 foot array on
That's
these.
right.
So I think this is the 4 foot now.
That's right. The existing radar, the DRS6A, has the 4 foot antenna on it.
Which one are we going to go with?
Yeah, with the new DRS6A NXT, we're going to stay with the 4 foot antenna. And the reason being is that the rod holders almost come right out. So the tips of the rods are going to be right about here. Technically, we could add the 6 foot antenna in a different installation, but in this case, they'd hit the rods.
Yeah, so they just literally don't have the room for it.
We don't have the room, and even on certain other tops, like Tortugas tops that are even more narrow than this, you could go to the 3.5 foot for clearance with rod tips.
Okay, now here's a question for you. Since we're talking about array lengths and the advantages and disadvantages, what are the advantages and disadvantages?
Okay, so that's a great question. A longer array is going to be able to focus the energy, whether we're, by the way, this is a little sidetrack, but whether we're talking about echo sounder systems or radar systems, we're talking about echoing systems. We're sending energy out and we're hoping to get a reflection off something.
Yeah.
With radars, it's exactly that way.
Yeah.
If we can focus the energy out of this antenna by making it a little bit longer and tightening up the beam width, we can put more power on that target and we're going to get a reflection. So we're up on the hardtop right now and we're going to take the old DRS6A off. First step is to remove the clamshell screws, which will allow us to hinge the radar open. What's kind of cool is that the new NXT design is a single piece.
Here, let me see
that allowed us to make the casting thinner and lighter, yet still retain the same rigidity as this, if not more rigid.
How much weight do we cut off?
We cut about almost 20 pounds off with the new design, the NXT that we're going to put on here.
That's a lot.
So you can knock 20 pounds off this hardtop just by updating and adding the new NXT or the new X-Class radar.
Some boats with like a bimini top or the canvas tops, they
it makes
can't
a
run
difference. Yeah,
heavy array
from
like
about
this.
64 pounds to about 40-something pounds, right around there. So it's a big difference.
So these are all loose.
Yeah.
The
Okay. Now
next
we can
thing is
flip
the,
up. We can flip up the array.
Yep.
In this case, notice that one thing I want to go over first before we open this up is that if you do have to remove this antenna, it's really important to use a putty knife and to remove it from around the surface here,
this
not
right
here against the antenna. Open it up here where you can see a little bit of a gap, but ideally that gap should be filled with continuous silicone.
Yeah.
So if you see a gap there, you can use that, but do not try to separate the antenna on any Furuno array from right here. It's not the way to go. It'll destroy the antenna. So you want to go right where the aluminum flange meets the fiberglass part of the antenna.
Okay.
At that point, use a putty knife, break the seal, and then you can separate the antenna. In this case, we're going to leave it together because we're just taking it off all in one piece.
So let's open up the gearbox here.
Boom. So in this case, we have a network sensor, and we have to disconnect the Ethernet network cable with this RJ45 connector, disconnect that, and then disconnect the power, which happens to be 48 volts.
Perfect.
We're not going to use 48 volts on the new NXT side. We're going to use 12 and 20 and or 24, depending on the application. So it's going to be a really simple swap. We're just going to pull this out and put the new one in.
All right, while Eric's taking apart the wiring and pulling the cable gland out, I'm going to work on loosening the bolts for the actual gearbox that actually hold it down to the hardtop. Now, a cool fun fact for all of you Furuno owners is that this bolt pattern here for the gearbox, these 4 bolts that hold it down to the hardtop, it's basically the same pattern that
Been the
we've
same
used
forever.
for what, 30 years, I think?
Forever.
With the exception of like some of the bigger commercial radars, just about every other, recreational radar, all the same bolt pattern. So when you're switching out and adapting to a new radar, you don't have to drill any more holes. It's pretty slick.
So we're just disconnecting the ground wire right here.
Okay.
Get a 7/16 cap screw. A little bit tight, and I'm going to put a box wrench on it.
There you go.
All right.
Try to get this gearbox out of your way enough.
All right. Boom, that's done.
All right.
That's off. Put the cap screw back on it. Continue to use that as a ground.
While Clayton's handing me this DRS radar, we're going to cut to Tim, and he's going to show you some of the new features of the NXT Doppler radar.
Thanks, guys. Today we're out on the Chesapeake Bay with Bill Judge, owner of Judge Yachts. And Bill's been using Furuno radars for a very long time, but he chose to outfit his current 36 Chesapeake with an NXT radar. So we're here to ask him why he did that and how he uses it. Let's take a look. Bill, I know you've been building boats on the bay for 30 years now, and you've seen and used every Furuno radar imaginable. I've seen on some of your boats you have the 4 kilowatt dome up to the high power open arrays for offshore use. But I noticed on your own personal boat when you built it this year, you chose to use Furuno's NXT radar. What made you make that choice?
Well, the NXT is the latest in Furuno's technology, and this boat is both an inshore and offshore boat. Offshore, we like to use it for the bird mode, and inshore, we use it for the target analyzer.
Which makes sense because the solid state radar, the NXT, does do a great job with close-in target resolution, seeing extremely close targets and navigating tight channels really well. I noticed when we came out here on your river is extremely tight navigation in a very small channel. Do you find that the NXT is working well for that?
Yeah, and another thing, here in the bay there are a lot of fishermen. So when we are in fog or any kind of condition that's hard to see, the target analyzer is a fantastic feature to have.
Now, when we came on board, Target Trail was already on. Is that something you like to use on a regular basis?
Yeah, one of the nicest features about Target Trails is for every boat is going a different speed, and when you look at the trail just at a glance, you can tell which one's going faster because obviously the trail is much longer.
Absolutely, that makes total sense. You're out a lot more than I am, Bill, and I'm sure you get caught in rainstorms a lot. How are you using the Doppler effect in the NXT radar to see through that rain?
To avoid it.
To avoid it. That's actually that's the perfect answer.
Away from it. I mean, if we see it coming at us at 5 knots, we drive away from it at 6 knots. We've done that quite a few times offshore. And you know, another thing we've noticed is you'll see a ball of mist.
Right.
And you can actually troll or drive around it too. And it's been amazing how detailed it can be with the different densities of rain.
Right, and you bring up a really good point because you know last year we were shooting on your boat as well, and we actually did catch some rain. And when I put it in rain mode, we got a lot of questions from customers as to why so much of the rain went away. Essentially on the NXT, when you're using rain mode, it wants you to be able to see inside of the rain and track targets in the rain. So what we do when we switch it to rain mode, what you're going to see is not what you're used to seeing. On a standard radar, you would just see a flooded area where the rain squall is actually sitting. When we put it in rain mode on the NXT, because we're able to use the Doppler effect, what we're doing is just showing a fine light dark blue color on the screen. And the reason we do that is it automatically adjusts the settings to let you see targets inside of that rain. And that's why it's taking so much of it away. It's letting you see on the screen where the rain is so you can avoid it, but it's also showing you exactly where the targets you're looking for are inside of that rain. So it's really a good feature to have. And we're going to talk about bird mode because that's one of the neat features it has to offer. So what I wanted to ask you, since you fish both on the bay and offshore, how do you use the NXT to see birds both on the bay and then again offshore? How is it different and how do you make your changes to use it?
Well, here on the Chesapeake, quite often there's not a lot of birds.
Right.
So you might have a group of seagulls, 10 to 20.
Right.
And what we like to do is have trails on.
Right.
Because what trails does is it'll track where the bird's been flying, and it's almost like taking a highlighter and just scribbling it all over the screen, and it makes it stand out.
Right.
And then that's what we look for. It'll be like a blue mass slowly moving around, and we know that's where the birds are.
Okay. And when you're out on the ocean, does it seem to be any different, or do you run things the same way?
Run it the same way, it's just that the mass will be much bigger.
Okay, because there's generally more birds out in the ocean.
Right.
That makes total sense.
And you can see that much further away in the ocean.
So there's your good tip from a fisherman who fishes all the time. If you are running bird mode, don't forget to turn target trails on because it'll help you find them much easier and make them stick out on the screen that much more. Now, let's head back out to the West Coast with Clayton and Eric and see how they're making out on Team Fortunate's NXT installation.
So Clayton and I just got done removing the DRS6A, and we're ready to put the DRS6A NXT solid state radar on.
Yep, but it's a little bit much for one episode, so we're going to split it up into 2 parts. So make sure to stay tuned for the second episode in our radar installation video. So thanks for watching, and if you like the exciting content that you've seen, click the link below to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll be the first one to know when we have new content available with new product information and new exciting stuff from Furuno.